few days ago, I was diving back into some of my favorite platformers like Hollow Knight and Ori, and I realized that something I had been unconsciously avoiding in my games is creating a really fluid movement system. Instead of setting a velocity or changing coordinates manually in code, I needed a better solution to move the player. The problem is that transform.position, which is a method of directly changing the player's coordinates, will fully phase the player through walls, which is less than ideal. However, when setting a velocity, the player will actually obey the laws of physics, but the downside is that acceleration and deceleration is instant. I decided that the best method would be to interpolate, which is a fancy way of saying blend, between the current speed and the maximum speed of the player. I would do the same thing for deceleration, interpolating between the maximum speed and no speed. By tuning the maximum speed and the acceleration, I landed on a movement system that felt less like an arcade game and more like a calculated organic platformer. That said, I still have no idea whether the player should be controlled with WASD or the arrow keys. Please let me know in the comments if you think platformers are better between WASD or the arrow keys. Now that the player could move from side to side, it only made sense to add a jump mechanic. This part was simple, or so I thought. Apply an upwards velocity to the player and they should fall back down. When I added that, the player jumped, but it felt so floaty that it took 3 whole business days to reach the ground. To fix this, I used a solution that the vast majority of platformers use. I strengthened the force of gravity. I multiplied it by 4 times when the player is falling and 3 times during all other times. It took a lot of fiddling to get the values for speed, acceleration, jump power, and gravity right, but once I did that, I was able to arrange a mini level to test things out. The values worked well together, but my timing was so awful that I messed up every single jump. Or maybe the controls were just too strict. Sometimes I would jump before hitting the ground, and according to my code, the player can't jump when not on the ground, so no jump would register. A common solution is to address this issue using a technique called coyote time. Basically, there's a brief window of time before hitting the ground or after leaving the ground where it's still possible for the player to jump. That way, if the player is a little bit too late to jump after leaving a ledge, the jump will still register. The same way, if you jump slightly before hitting the ground, the jump will also still register. The movement is now tight and responsive, even with my crap timing. It's fun, and it'll look even more dynamic once I replace this red block with an actual model. For this game, I also went on a kind of side quest. In addition to making the movement system, I also started experimenting with the graphics. I didn't feel like using code to create grass or use nodes, so I decided to try and model it myself. The thing is, grass is really tiny. That means I would have to copy and paste a grass model over and over again inside of the game. Now, I'm fine with that, but my computer can barely run Snake Game without bursting into a ball of flames, so I need to find a more efficient way to do it. I decided to use a sneaky method of combining 2D and 3D in order to hide multiple blades of grass on one polygon. Basically, the way that it works is I draw something on a drawing app, I use Procreate, and then I fade out the edges and go into Blender. In Blender, I add a basic plane and give the plane an image texture with the image of grass that I drew in Procreate. Then I take the plane, rotate and duplicate a few times, and with some tweaking, I now had grass that looked good from all angles. Now the color schemes were clashing, but once I start making more assets, everything should fit together just fine. That's everything I've done so far, and I'm excited to keep working on the project. I'll be posting videos more regularly to keep you guys updated. Like I said before, please let me know in the comments if the controls should be controlled with WASD or the arrow keys. Thanks.